Hi there, my name is John Stevens. I'm pastor of Zion Lutheran Church in Oregon City, Oregon, and we are part of the ELCA, and welcome to Dollar Store Children's Sermons, where we take a look at the lectionary text, I tie them to an item from the Dollar Tree, or the kids' room, or the garage, or the junk drawer. You know how we've been doing it. Thank you so much for your partnership in this ministry, for taking a little bit of your week, a little bit of your day, and spending it with me. I appreciate it greatly, and you're rocking it. I say it at the end a lot of times, but in case you don't make it to the end, because if you're like me, you get about 3/4 of the way through and it's like squirrel. So, you are rocking it. If your congregation forgets to tell you, let me be the one, you're rocking it. So, the congregation, your families, your kids, they appreciate you, and thank you for the work you're doing. All right. This is for the 17th Sunday after Pentecost, and we're looking at the gospel lesson and the second reading. We're talking about faith. Before we get into the springboards and all that, I do want to point out, if you haven't listened or you don't know about the podcast Pulpit Fiction or By the Well, two great resources. And I was listening to Pulpit Fiction on the way into church this morning, and they've got some good nuggets on this text, including extending it for the first 4 verses, because that gives us context about what the disciples are like. Increase our faith, which has to do with forgiving. And then they deal with that last part about what has been used as a pro-slavery text, as a pro-oppression of women text, as a stay in your lane text. And that's not what this is about. This is about we are expected to forgive, because that's the first 4 verses. As people of God, that's what part of what our calling is. And so we're not doing it to get special treatment. We're not doing it because it's kind of like we get a gold star. Hey, I forgave my neighbor today. No, it's because that's what we're expected to do. Doesn't completely wipe out the hardship, but to speak to what this text is not for, and that's for larger context, but I found it very helpful. So Pulpit Fiction was where they had that conversation. It's worth taking a look. All right, so our springboards. I am looking at faith, and I'm looking at faith as a gift, which is a very Lutheran beyond that, but for us, Martin Luther says, even to say I believe, and he gets that from Scripture, even to say I believe is a gift of the Spirit. That faith is a gift. And so I am looking at ways that people around us, and especially out of Timothy, where they're talking about grandmother and great-grandmother and all the family of the faith, the generations of the faith, how that is a gift, and how that's so important for it's important for my own faith life. I have a print up on my wall, which is a poem and a benediction that my grandmother wrote me, and on that, because she wrote it out. I said pencil, but she wrote it out in ink. I'll imagine that. But there's a marking of a coffee cup that as she was writing it down and put down the coffee cup, there's a coffee cup ring, which is it's a gift for me. And I see that, and I remember my grandmother, and I remember the faith that Ma really helped instill and grow in me. So I'm talking about that. So a couple of the things I'm looking at. One is the idea, it says if you have the faith of the size of a mustard seed. And so the first thought I have when we talk about that is, what, that much? It's like, there are days where that size of a mustard seed seems like it might as well be Mount Everest. Because I don't have, there's the days that I struggle to even have that, the size of a mustard seed. That's, again, more commentary than anything. But the thing is that mustard seed came from somewhere. That mustard seed came from another plant. That mustard seed is a product of another mustard plant bush. Greatest of trees, as the text says, or whatever. And that is crucial for me, because if we're going to say all you have to do is have faith as like a mustard seed, it's important for me to go, okay, so where does that come from? Now, for me, it came from my family, and that family can look a lot different for a lot of people. There's family you were born with, and there's the family you chose. Family's family, and as I'm talking about this, so if that connection of the mustard seed coming from somewhere. And that's, we could take like any analogy or any metaphor or any whatever. I mean, we can take that to the extent and it starts to break down. But this idea that if we're going to talk about a mustard seed, for me, that came from somewhere. And that's tying into the second reading out of 2 Timothy. So we've got that. So the mustard seed. But the other thing is I'm looking at clippings that of a plant that can make another plant. Maybe an avocado pit, that possible. But I'm thinking of, I have a Christmas cactus where someone has taken someone has taken part of the Christmas cactus and made, through love and care and doing the proper things. I'm not a gardener, so but I know because I have one in my house that someone took and they created that. They helped that, and that Christmas cactus I see helps me reminds me of Marie, who helped that process. So there's that. There is also things like sourdough starter, where there's conversations where someone has a sourdough starter of 100 years, that it was passed on, that you take a little bit of that sourdough starter and you put it in and it creates. Out here in Portland area, kombucha, I believe that's how you say it. Another one of the drink where you take bits, there's a starter, if you will, and how you can create and it moves on. But the sourdough starter, I'm thinking of Pastor Christine Core, and her and I had a great conversation about sourdough pancakes and her starter, and how that has been passed on. So those are those things where because I want to tie in. Maybe then you've got that springboard. Maybe this is a point where you have members of the congregation, saints of the congregation, grandmothers of the congregation, grandfathers of the congregation that could stand up, that have been instrumental in the faith life of your congregation, and lift them up as people of God who continue to instill the faith in all of those that are around them. So, all right, I'm hoping this can be a springboard. There's a lot of different directions my brain is going, but I'm hoping this can be helpful for your own children's sermon. And as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your partnership in this ministry. And I am praying for you all, and I hope you have a fantastic week. And I will see you next week. All right, peace.